What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Hawks Film Room podcast. Hawks just picked up their fifth win in a row. Walked down the Bucks after Milwaukee took a quick 10-point lead in the first quarter. So I had to bring on my guy Stev to talk about the game. How you doing today, bro?
Not too bad, man. Bucks lost, but we'll be all right.
Yeah, coming off of 6, 7 wins in a row, right?
Yeah, I think it was seven, most in the league, or tied for most, I think it was.
Yeah, y'all were definitely playing really good basketball. And for a Hawks team that's also coming off a hot streak, I thought it was going to be a really good way to see sort of who had a little bit more in the tank left. You guys are coming off a back to back, so I think that definitely had a little bit of a factor, especially with some of the 3-point attempts. Felt like the Hawks weren't always super sharp with the way they were closing out or the guys they were leaving open. I felt like AJ Green in particular had a lot of threes that I was like kind of like my heart stopped for a second.
Yeah, I think so. I looked it up after the game because I've been screaming for him to take more shots. This
Mhm.
was the second most shots he's ever taken in a game, and he ended up shooting 18%. So, I mean, I'll live with all of those attempts he took, though. Most of them looked really good. I'm fine with him shooting 20 times a game if he ends up doing that. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
He's that good of a shooter.
yeah. I mean, above 45%, and I think this is even factoring in with him shooting 2 of 11. So yeah, I was just legitimately scared every time he
Yeah.
goes up from behind the arc. But I want to go ahead and hop into give us some flowers to the individual guys. For me, starting off with the Hawks players, I mean Jalen Johnson. I'm kind of like running out of words to describe like how impressed I am with him. I had a little bit of skepticism about what he would look like in a role with a little bit more offensive responsibility. And I still do think there's moments where he could be tentative or he can get a little bit shaky with handling in space. But 23, 13, and 5 tonight, 2 steals, a block, 10 of 19 from the floor. And what really popped for me was the transition attack. Like he was relentless getting up and down the floor. Put Brooke Lopez on a nasty poster, and so he was a big reason why the Hawks were able to remain physical in the paint against not a super elite paint protection team, but of course, Brook Lopez and Giannis are still huge presences around the rim. And so I think Jalen was a big part of that. And so what did you see from Jalen tonight?
I think this is my first time watching him like start to finish this year. But yeah, he's everything people advertise him as. I mean, the ball handling for being that big, him, the movement, he can go, and that was cool to see. He can really move out there.
Yeah, I think he's sort of getting to that point where he's becoming a little bit dangerous as a passer as well, and that's opening up a lot for him. But I'm curious to see like who you would highlight from the Bucks roster.
Oh man, there wasn't too many options today. Dame, I thought Dame played a good game. What was it? I mean, a few games ago he wasn't shooting the ball well, but these past few he started to shoot the three a little better. Today, 5 and 9 from deep, so that's always good. And I thought it was going to be enough to keep the Bucks in the game, but I mean, I don't even think he got up that many attempts in the fourth.
Mm.
But I thought he had a really good game.
Yeah, for the past couple games, from what I've seen from your page and then from just Bucks Twitter in general, um, Giannis and Dame have been cooking the last couple
Yeah,
games before, and so that was something I was definitely worried about. They still got theirs tonight, and we'll talk about it a little bit earlier about Giannis in particular. But I did think when Dame got loose, he had, of course, his signature deep threes. He got to the cup a bit as well. Um, but I wanted looking at the roster honestly, like I think Torian Prince only played 24 minutes tonight. He had 10 points, was 4 of 8 from the field. I feel like he's the really only serviceable bench player in terms of reliability for you guys. Now, I do think DeLon Wright and AJ Green they bring things on a night to night basis that it's a little bit more variable for guys like Gary Trent Jr. or Bobby Portis. But I thought Torian Prince was as steadying as a bench player as you like could expect from someone who doesn't have a huge role offensively. He particularly started the game hot. I think he was 3 for 3. And obviously, you're not going to get a ton of utilization in the role that he's playing, but I think for this Bucks team, he's important to keep involved. And I think in general, they just looked a little bit better with him on the floor than without him.
for sure. Yeah, even I mean, 25 minutes seems like, a decent amount, but just going off of I feel like he could have played more. They went with like AJ and Gary down the stretch, and they went with, they try to sprinkle in DeLon a little bit, but yeah, Torian, he's played good all year. He's shot the ball like, I mean, I think he's at 54% or was coming into the game from three. That's insane. That's obviously not gonna, stand the whole season. But I mean, even if that comes down a bit, I thought he's been solid defensively. And then he's starting right now too, so, for Chris. So he's been solid.
For sure. And then do you have any Hawks that you think you would highlight?
I would definitely say Jalen Johnson. I thought Bogey played a pretty good game too. He was solid. Um, he does. It seems like he's a Bucks killer. He's on that list. You know what I mean? I don't know what he's been doing, over the course of the year, but he's good for some threes where you feel like they're really well contested, and he still knocks them down. So I think he's on that Bucks killer list.
Yeah, 100%. He's actually been, he was hurt for a little bit to start the season. So it
Yeah,
felt
yeah, I do remember that. Yeah,
like get to his he's sort of slowly working back. And his shot, some of the shots he takes, like as a Hawks fan, I have full confidence, but they definitely look super audacious. Like if you don't watch him, um,
right, for sure,
and
for
you're like,
sure.
wow, that's a crazy shot. But that is like, especially in transition where he's catching and turning, I feel like
Yeah,
absolutely money. And so he was big for us tonight. And in particular, I thought he was really good in the passing lanes, also on post ups as well. But I want to start by looking at what happened on the glass tonight. So um, Milwaukee outscored the Hawks by 18 from the 3-point line, and they also took 12 more free throw attempts. But the Hawks still took 25 more field goal attempts. And at least in my opinion, the biggest reason for that probably had to do with the offensive rebounds. So Milwaukee gave up their second highest offensive rebound percentage this season, 38.6%. And for the Hawks, it was Clint Capella on the glass for the most part. He had 6 boards, but their forwards, Reza Shea, Jalen Johnson. Reza Shea had 4, Jalen had 3. I thought those were huge swings for the Hawks, especially because uh, against a team like Milwaukee that's really good operating like offensively in the half court, the Hawks have to beat them out in transition or like just getting more extra possessions. And so for me, it felt like it was a huge key point for the Hawks, and it's also something they've been trying to like exert against all teams that they play. So I was curious, like for a team like Milwaukee, which has a lot of size, right, especially in the front court with both of those guys on the floor, what do you think made them vulnerable on the offensive glass tonight?
I thought the Hawks did a good job of just moving off ball and screening the ball, slipping screens, and just getting the Bucks moving and putting them out of position for when those shots go up. The bigs are not near the glass, so I mean the Bucks are. It feels like the Bucks are really bad at guarding those slip screens. They're all over the place when it comes to that. And are they switching? Are they hedging? Are they in drop? It's kind of all over the place. So I thought the Hawks did a ton of that, and they had those possessions where Jalen Johnson had the ball and Trey screened for him, and they got Giannis on Trey. So they were kind of all over the place and not in good position to begin with for those rebounds. I think Andre Jackson Jr. helps a ton on the glass, and then he only got 11 minutes tonight. So
Mm.
this is an old, slow team. I mean, long rebounds are going to kill them.
Yeah, so I think a lot of points were made there, especially like about just their age. Um, and as big as you guys are at the front court, I also think if the bigs, like you said, are pulled out away from the rim, it can be tough for you guys to rebound as a team because they don't really have that size outside of that. And so you mentioned a play that like I saw this and I was just like, yeah, that was a great play design. So I do want to show it really quick. Um, so unfortunately, because I'm in Atlanta, I don't have like everything's blacked out, so I can't watch the game. But I can show this clip um, from the game. So this play started with Trey setting a sort of a screen right here, an inverted pick and roll to get Jalen Johnson matched up against Andre Jackson Jr. But the actual intention of this play was to get Giannis on the tray. And traditionally, like when the Hawks would have a mismatch with a big, someone like Trey, they want him to attack in space. They want him to, try and get shifty. But as you pointed out, it's actually a screening action here where he's going to come off this curl from Clint Capella. And Giannis, of course, at 7 feet, really bulky guy, big ass shoulders. It's tough to get around those screens. And then now Trey's getting downhill, and Brook Lopez is no man's land. So I thought it was cool that you saw that because I thought that was a really good play from the Hawks. And I also wanted to highlight some of the offensive rebounding that we saw as well. Because I think you made a good point about like the Hawks wings sort of just sneaking in. And this is kind of what that looked like. I think it's this one. So as we mentioned, like once Milwaukee's bigs are up the floor, it's kind of tough because you're talking about Gary Trent Jr., Damian Lillard, and AJ Green. Not a lot of size compared to what the Hawks have at those positions. Reza Shea, Dyson Daniels, and Jalen Johnson, like they just sort of outclassed them. And so when this shot goes up, Giannis is kind of, he's ball watching. He's not going to the rim, and it's an easy, even though he didn't convert, that's extra possessions for the Hawks. So I think that was definitely on the money.
No, it seemed like that was all night for them. It was, multiple attempts, on second chance. They were all over the glass, and it looked like that. It felt like that. So those numbers, the shot attempt difference, it felt like that.
And again, here's this another example of what it looks like, especially when Giannis is the only big on the floor. I think it's even tougher. As you said, they closed out with Gary Trent Jr. And so I do like, I know you mentioned Andre Jackson is someone who you think could help with something like that. But do you think that there's enough offensively to like run those minutes with him on the floor, or do you think teams are just going to take advantage of his like lack of offensive gravity?
Yeah, it's been like a push and pull. I think it really helps when the Bucks are able to get misses when you're constantly playing in the half court. I mean, it's a whole different ball game, having to find something for him to do for that possession and, set him in the right places. Even in the dunker, he hasn't been the most willing to take those, layups pretty much. But yeah, it's been a work in progress. I mean, I think the offense should be good enough, theoretically with Giannis, Dame, and Chris. I mean, the numbers are pretty good with those three offensively,
Mm-hmm.
so I would assume it could work at some capacity, but the Celtics did it earlier in the year where they just literally did not guard him, and they couldn't play him. So depending on who you play and how they guard him, I guess.
And to your point, older team, less athleticism. Tonight against the Hawks, 85% of Milwaukee's plays were in the half court, which is in the 6th percentile of all games this season. And then they only got out in transition on 8.7% of their total plays. And so the Hawks defense last year, we were so terrible defending in transition. We actually allowed the highest efficiency on transition opportunities in the NBA. This year, we're at 6th. In my opinion, I do think some of what Milwaukee's inability to get out in transition is just about who's on the roster. Did you see anything like from the Hawks in particular that you think they did well to limit Milwaukee in transition, or do you think it's more so like just have to do with the roster construction?
I mean, I can't point to anything just like from the first watch. I would have to go back and watch it again. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, the Hawks are the team that, you would like on paper, you could just figure that they would give the Bucks trouble because of how long they are, how athletic they are, and just how they constantly are running. Like you said, just from a pure age and roster construction standpoint, that it seems like a mismatch. And I mean, it showed tonight. The Hawks were. It felt like they were getting everything in transition. I mean, I think we got beat back on a free throw. It was pretty bad.
Yeah, the Hawks has been an emphasis this year to push off rebounds and not just off of steals. I want to take a look at the Bucks' 7 steals that they had tonight. Atlanta had 16. The season high for any team this season is 18. So there is a big discrepancy there. But I think when you look at how the Bucks are like sort of moving on these possessions when they do get a turnover, it sort of shows you that I think that they just don't have as much of an emphasis on getting out the run. And I think they started off really well. Like I mentioned, 10-point lead to start the game. And this was a nice, pump fake to get Reza Shea in the air. and then driving the closeout. But again, I do think like outside of Dame and Giannis, is Taurean Prince the only guy on this roster who could do that consistently? Like,
Right.
is that a fair assessment? But like that's kind of like what I saw when I was watching.
No, yeah. I mean, Gary Trent was someone I thought could, give us something as far as like
Mhm.
dribble penetration and creation. And it just hasn't been there yet. But I mean, yeah, especially right now without Chris, it's Giannis and Dame.
Yeah, and then um, it's just like a, and I do think the Hawks did get back a lot. Obviously Giannis is once he gets ahead of steam. This is tough for anyone to stop. But I just didn't feel like he was able to get out and transition a ton. I also
For
think
sure,
like
yeah.
with like the balance of the floor, like Dame and Torian, like TP are not trying to put. They're not helping him out here. You know what I mean? Like if there isn't a foul here, there's
Yeah.
not much else to do but kick it back out. And then from that point on, you're just playing in the half court. So I do think, even from Andre Jackson, like I think there needs to be okay, Trey's on me, let me get to the rim instead of just trying to. I think he's trying to be mindful of filling his lane here, but this should be, you know what I'm saying? This should be a cut here. There should be a
Mhm.
little bit more movement in transition in general. And I think it's not to Giannis's benefit with the way that they're currently reacting off of these steals. Again, here's another one. Like it's pretty lackadaisical. This turns into
Yeah.
I don't know if he makes this, but like I don't think obviously this is
I
Damian
mean,
Lillard. So I'm not going to criticize him, but go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, for sure. I mean, just looking at the frame right here, it's honestly we got 3 or 4 negative athletes on the floor. Like none of these guys are
Right.
scaring you athletically. So I mean, that's tough. Like to for Giannis for these guys. I think even going back the other way, defending the transition buckets, you add Brook
Mhm.
Lopez into that mix, and it gets even worse. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
this team has those types of problems for sure. I mean, adding Chris back that doesn't help this problem either.
Right. And so I do think when you have an older team, the hope is that you're so much better in the half court defensively and offensively that you could sort of make up
Hmm.
for
Yeah,
the lack of athleticism. I'm pretty sure you guys did score on this play. By the way, I do think, obviously Giannis is gonna get a better whistle, but I thought there were fouls that kind of went uncalled. Um, we'll talk a little bit
no,
about
yeah, there was a few for sure.
yeah, but I mean it's on both ends. We'll talk a little bit about it. I just want to finish up looking at these steals, and then I'll sort of juxtapose it with what the Hawks look like. Um, this is also what I meant by like Jalen being erratic. He was kind of in his head, like especially like I think Giannis gave him some problems. Um, I'm pretty sure this also didn't turn into points, at least in the transition. Like, yeah, this actually I'm pretty sure this didn't turn into points. Again, it's like, bro, like I know Capella's here, and I know that guys are conditioned to go to the 3-point line. But if you're DeLon Wright, you need like I just think he needs to be cutting here. Like I just don't think guys are helping Giannis. That's one thing. Um,
I would like I don't know. I wonder what he's shooting or Delon is shooting at the rim this year. It can't be good because I mean between him and Gary, it's
mhm,
like it's a dice roll going to the rim with those guys. Delon threw up some, I think, a few crazy layups tonight, and he hasn't been the ball handler. I mean, I didn't think he was much of a ball handler, but he's got no juice in him for as far as ball handling. He's got nothing, and I think the Bucks are desperately missing Chris Middleton's ball
mhm.
handling. Just in the second units, secondary creation and things like that. They're missing another ball handler for sure.
Yeah, he's actually shooting 66%, but it's like tiny volume, and he's also been
Is it
blocked on
okay?
22% of his attempts at the rim. So, like pretty negligible that 66% number. Um,
That's nasty right there. That's not good.
so I think it's another steal for y'all. Um,
What was
before
this?
it was
Can you go back and see what the shot clock was on that one?
on this right here.
Yeah, 20 seconds. I mean, that's rough, man.
Yeah, yeah. Is this in? Yeah, this is the full game. I just want to make sure. And then I think that was the last steal of the game. I think, or maybe there was one more. Yeah. So like all the steals came in the second half, and really the first and second quarter, and they really
Yeah.
weren't able to create much disruption outside of that. Other thing I want to talk about, uh, I've seen you talk about a lot about the post ups and how frustrating they've been for you.
Hmm.
Uh, so I want to look particularly at Bogey steals because he had multiple on post ups versus a couple
If I,
guys,
yeah.
and so I'm so here we go. Yeah, pretty sure this was on. Here is Bobby posting up here, one dribble, back tapped away. I think one thing about post up, it's all about rhythm. You know what I mean? So like once you become predictable, the defender here knows the ball can only go back in one place. He's not going to spin over this. It's coming right back up to his hand.
Yeah.
But Bobby, I have seen Bobby turn over his right shoulder so much that I'm sure that's the way Bogey's playing it. But I would like for you to share just a little bit about like your frustration with post ups, and then I'll talk a little bit about the Hawks defense against it.
So I think right now, I think someone had a stat earlier today. Bucks are tied for worst points per possession in the league on post ups. At a pretty high clip.
Mhm,
Bobby Portis at 26.4% frequency, Giannis at 15.2, Bobby at zero point 0.9 points per possession, Giannis at 0.89. So I mean
mhm,
that's pretty bad. You know what I mean? That's not good offense, but I'm like it's tough because especially in the bench lineups with Torian starting, then you get into the Giannis no Dame lineups, Dame no Giannis lineups. There's like we talked about before, there's a lack of offensive creation and guys to get their own shot. So I mean, sometimes you're like hoping one of these goes in, but a lot of
mhm.
the times it just turns into possessions like this where it's four guys standing around watching Bobby trying to get to that, turn over the right shoulder or the jump hook, and it's just not good.
Yeah, I think in general, like I felt like the offense could get stagnated, and that's not just off the post ups, but it was
Hmm.
also I felt like okay, Giannis is leading the league in points in the paint. He's at over 20, I believe.
Yeah,
Tonight, he's still putting that same pressure on the rim. Don't get me wrong, but he took almost double the free throw attempts than he took field goal attempts, and I felt
yeah.
like that was almost a net negative for you guys because not only does it, on a normal night he doesn't convert at a high clip from the free throw line, but I also felt like because he wasn't able to penetrate without being fouled or without like the Hawks really collapsing on him tough, there wasn't a lot of kickouts and there wasn't even like the points per possession that you would expect from Giannis driving to the rim. I felt like weren't it wasn't as high as you would expect because of the way that he was getting fouled and also just the way the Hawks collapsed on him. So,
Hmm.
no, I think there's obviously like a lot of value in putting teams in the bonus, and Dyson Daniels fouled out. Like the Hawks fouled a lot,
Yeah.
but I almost felt like it almost dragged the offense down because Giannis wasn't able to really get to his bread and butter, which is scoring at the rim.
Yeah. I think the Hawks have a really good team as far as, protecting from Giannis constant drives. You know what I mean? I mean, Onyeka's gave Giannis problems previously. I thought Jalen Johnson did an okay job on him, but Clint has no problem fouling Giannis.
Right.
And all three of those guys are stronger guys. I don't think Giannis got too many and one attempts. I remember specifically
Mhm.
uh, Clint got him and just did not let him go up with the
Yeah.
ball. So
Yeah.
those guys who are fine taking the foul and strong enough to wrap up, yeah. I mean, at a point, I mean, what did he have today? 26 free throws. At some point, it becomes like, okay, you got to at least try to finish some of these because you going to the line is not helping much.
Yeah. I think it's tough too because I've seen a lot about like how he's grown as an offensive player, and I definitely think he has. Like the mid range game has been nice. I didn't feel like he got to that a lot tonight, or did you feel otherwise?
No, I think there was, only a few, that I could remember off the top of my head.
Mm,
And I think even a lot of times with that, like you said, that even comes from a lot of Giannis ISO ball,
mhm,
with luckily they're falling at the clip they are falling at because, I mean, I think in the Wizards game 2 games ago, I think it was 2 games ago, they just didn't fall at that clip, right? So then those
mhm.
possessions turn into pretty bad standing around watching possessions, similar to those post up possessions to where, it's just four guys watching somebody post up and it not leading to much. So um yeah, I mean, like we keep going back to the lack of offensive creation in those one of the big two right now lineups, it gets kind of tough.
And so I think in general, I think the way teams can compensate for a lack of creation is by getting out and running in transition. So then it's like,
Yeah,
damn, that's the issue because like if you can't create like consistently in the half court, then you have to supplement it with generating possessions in other ways. And so that's either by being disruptive defensively, which is what you see OKC do a lot. Like they put a lot of pressure on the ball because their half court offense, especially last year, wasn't super strong. So they want to get out and run in transition. And I wanted to pull these clips about the way the Hawks react off their steals because it's such a drastic difference. This is a great cut by Brook Lopez, but now this is a 3-on-2. Dame, gambles, and the Hawks are just a lot more aggressive getting down the floor than you would see from Milwaukee in a similar situation. And I think the way that the Hawks ended the quarter, again, like you can, like I feel like this is a very
yeah.
old Brook Lopez. Like this is old. Like
Yeah,
he just he looks old. He looks like like his better days are, he's they're sort of past him. And I think
yeah,
I don't know how you fix that. You know what I mean? Like I know how you fix offensive inefficiency, but I don't know how you fix
right.
it without sacrificing even like the offensive flow in the half court. Or here's the other thing too. Like I just want to ask your philosophy on this. I think there's like a general understanding that contending teams are older. You know what I mean? Like there's a
Mhm.
value experience, but there's also you also have to somehow inject athleticism. And as you get like it's a give and a take. Like the older the player
Yeah,
is, the less athletic they're going to be. So do you think there's room like from I think like a lot of teams when they're trying to figure out how they can take the next level, it's like, okay, we need to add like proven vets. With the proven vets already on the roster, is the next step going to be then, okay, we need an athletic young guy who's not so precocious that they're going to lose his games, but they're going to give us
right.
that energy. Is that sort of like, does that make sense? And if it does make sense, is there anyone you have in mind that could actually do that?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's what it's been for, like, the past few seasons, right? It's like, okay, this team I think the Bucks were the oldest team in the league for a few years running.
Yeah.
Um, it's kinda been that, yeah, that push and pull, like, can we I mean, the Bucks didn't have draft picks, so can we find guys that can be young, come in and, help on the wing or, yeah, help run alongside Giannis on these fast breaks? Um,
Right.
I mean, luckily, they even found AJ Green and Andre Jackson. Andre Jackson's a second round pick, and then AJ was a two-way guy that they ended up signing. So, I mean, luckily they even found those two because I mean they had nothing, like not even a glimmer of hope to come in and help these guys. And Gary's only 25, and I know he hasn't played the greatest into where everyone's thought he would be at, and starting and knocking down all types of shots. Although he's been better of late, um,
Right.
he hasn't, just been up to where people had thought, and even myself, I thought he would be a little bit better. But yeah, it's been that push and pull and trying to get older guys
Mm.
out like Pat Connaughton, who he came in late in the game. But I mean, we're running with the joke on Bucks Twitter that when he gets a DMP, we're undefeated so far, and Doc put him in tonight because he knew it was over, and that would save the stat. So um, it's been that push and pull for
Mhm.
years now, trying to find guys to replace the older guys and go just to find a healthy balance between the two.
Yeah. And I think that's also why you guys have drafted so many young guys consecutively. Like I think like the hope is
Right?
eventually
Yeah.
and
Someone hits.
right. And I like AJ Johnson a lot, but I mean we talked about it. I didn't think that was the greatest pick for y'all. Um
Yeah.
I still think Tyler Smith could be an impactful player. But I think like, not to beat a dead horse, but I just think there's such a drastic difference. Like TP
Yeah.
and Brooke, like
No, yeah,
they're
it
full.
doesn't ever look pretty, yeah, when we're
Yeah,
looking at it like
like,
this.
yeah, like there's the only person who's sprinting, these two right here, and DeLon Wright, like Brooke is actually walking. Like he's trotting around. You know what I mean? It's
I
it's
mean,
it's
so, like, that makes so many problems, like, so, they had Brooke in the dunker earlier in the year, and then you can't do that because then Brooks is, like we see here, he's gonna be the last one down the floor, so Brooke can't be in the dunker, so he's gotta be out on the three-point line, and that's that
yeah.
messes with who you can put in the dunker. It's like, okay, so if it's not gonna be Brooke, can it be Andre? Is Andre gonna be good enough in the dunker? Is he gonna, try to make some of those? Can he make the right passes from there?
Mhm.
Um, but over this win streak, I mean, the Bucks have found, like a good middle ground. I don't think they've gotten out in transition. They probably have a little bit more, but I think it's came down to like if we can get stops, then we can play against a defense that's not all the way set up. You know what I mean? We can find some mismatches in semi transition. We can get into some empty side DHOs just off of beating a few guys up the floor. So during the win streak, I mean, they got stops and they hit shots. I mean, that kind of cures all. But just getting stops and not even getting turnovers, it helped a ton. Just getting a few more easy looks because I mean, as I've talked about it a lot, just you have to get as many easy looks as you can because this team is going to struggle uh, creating shots for themselves when in those one of Dame and Giannis lineups.
Yeah. And that's the same way I felt about the Hawks because they don't have anyone to fall back on, shot creation wise. So I think that's definitely um, a huge benefit. I want to. I think we already slandered the bench enough, so I do want to ask you. I want to show you a particular clip um, from Trey Young. And Trey, there was a particular part in the game where I felt like Trey in the fourth quarter he was really competing, um, just closing out on AJ Green. Like I think Green had two back-to-back threes after the Hawks defense had broken down just a little bit. Um, and Trey, the Hawks' best player, got out there and got two solid contests on him. So when Giannis drives, the whole defense collapses. Dyson is very opportunistic. If
Hmm.
one, maybe half a second, if Giannis holds his ball for just about half a second or more, it's gone. But as the ball gets put in rotation, Trey's gonna fly from across the court after this offensive rebound, and he's gonna get out to AJ Green. Oh, dang, NBA software is. I mean, the way they let me see if I can pull it up from this clip.
No, I definitely remember that one though. That was a good closeout, and one people said could have been swung to Dame right there. But
Mm,
no, that's a good closeout, and I mean we've kind of gone on the whole year with uh the effort that Giannis and Dame.
mhm.
That's a good closeout. I mean, from getting that from your best player in the fourth quarter, um, that's big. Those are two solid closeouts on a guy who, I mean, doesn't need much room at all to make shots.
Yeah, and I think without this effort, I think AJ makes one of these for sure. And this is from the opposite nail to the quarter full sprint. He's in the crowd, and then he comes back. And I think for a Hawks team that's really struggled defensively for a long time, a lot of it the blame was placed on Trey. And I think that was completely fair, not just because of his stature, but he was apathetic defensively.
Hmm.
Like
Yeah,
I'm small, okay, like go ahead, score, bro. Like, but I think in general, like I don't think DeJounte brought the attitude that they needed. I think that effort is contagious, and I think that there was a lot of discussion on Hawks Twitter where like, oh, one player can't change the culture, and I agreed with that. Like I'm like, okay, Dyson isn't gonna come here and make us a top 10 defense just off the strength of like his leadership. He's also a third-year player. You know what I mean? Like that's a lot to put on his shoulders. But what he can do is motivate guys by being such a defensive force. And I think
for
it's
sure.
even more impactful when you see someone like Trey, you know, getting out and running towards AJ Green and really getting a good flyby on him. I'm curious for you, like, obviously Giannis has been the franchise player in Milwaukee for a long time, and we all know what a two-way force he is and continues to be. Do you think that it's sort of been a like when they traded for Dame, and now you introduce a lot of offensive firepower, but it comes at the cost of some of the defensive versatility.
Hmm.
Do you think that that's also like sort of just led to a little bit less buy-in defensively, or do you think that that's just more so like the natural aging of the team, and where guys, you can't really ask Giannis to cover the same ground that he did defensively, and also you understand how old Dame is at this point as well. So you think it's just more so like a natural decline, or do you think it's as the culture has changed a little bit, new coaches, new personnel, that sort of led to that the defense just not being as consistently good?
I think it's definitely a little bit of both. Like, I mean, I think that's why Andre Jackson Jr. is in the starting lineup right now. Like, he's definitely not on the level of Dyson, but I mean, it's the
Right.
kind of the same concept, right? Like, it's this guy is gonna like run around like with his head cut off for as long as you let him, and he's gonna give it everything he has. And Andre's a smart defender too, or smart player. I think he's taken a leap defensively this year. He was a big fouler last season. He was I think the fouls per 48 were insane. And this year he's just been a lot better with it. But yeah, it's kind of the same concept of like I think this guy can come in and just give these older guys a little spark and keep them going defensively and do just enough defensively to get us by. You know what I mean? Or
Yeah.
to be that point of attack guy and to lead guys just that close, just that much closer to Brook so that Brook can get a better contest. I mean, we went 82 games or 72 games last year because I think Doc benched Beasley at the end, but of Malik Beasley just not being enough defensively at the point of attack.
Mm,
And they started with Gary this year. They started Gary, and I think Gary's shot kind of took him out of the game defensively, and he let that bleed into the defense. But I
mm,
think Gary even gave them a little boost defensively, and I think Andre's kind of multiplying that. But yeah, I mean, last year it was a little bit of both. It was a little bit of Giannis and Dame not doing enough defensively and them not having enough defensively in general with,
mm,
their point of attack defense. And then this year, I think, they tried to fix that. They brought in Gary, they gave Andre a shot to take that role, and AJ Green's been solid defensively. So I think they're trying to make it work. And Doc has shown a ton of he's moving things around. He's trying different things. So
mm,
I do appreciate that.
for sure. And I want to pivot real quick and just ask you your opinion one more time on Jalen Johnson. I thought today was a unreal game from him, especially in transition. Um, Here he starts with 3 bucks ahead of him, just loses Giannis here, and I think the tightness of the handle to pick this up, get through, and get all the way to the rim is crazy. Um, and I think that obviously a lot about transition threats. Also, he was talking. I don't know who was talking mess in the Bucks crowd, but it seemed
Yeah, with
like
someone
I know.
behind that basket, it looked like.
Yeah, someone behind the basket was saying a lot of stuff because Trey had words for him. I think Jalen had some
Yeah.
words too. This is like I think Jalen is from Wisconsin, so
Yeah, no, he's from a little north of Milwaukee, I think it is.
so obviously I think for him, you want to. Also, this is the only mid range attempt Giannis took, um, which I found interesting. It's not like the Hawks don't necessarily pack the paint, but like you said, they do have a lot of physical defenders. Um,
Yeah.
this is also the best pass I've ever seen from Clint Capella. Like this is I was like, when I saw him do this, I was fully expecting this to fly into the crowd and maybe like destroy a baby or something like that. But this was on the money, man. He led
No,
him.
that's a dime.
That was it was a dime, and I think like the Hawks have just become. It is so crazy because we've. It's not like Jalen is someone that we just added. Like he's always been this super dynamic guy, but the Hawks were not.
Yeah.
They were never running. Like last year, transition frequency, we were out in transition on just 16.5% of our possessions. That was 19th. Year before, we got out in transition, just 16.3%. This year, we're at the 4th highest in the league. And so it's been a mindset shift as much as it's been a personnel shift. But then it's also like
Right.
guys are intuitively understanding if I run, I'm gonna get the ball. And this is something I talked about really early in the season. There was a long, like for a long period of time, like especially before Quinn got there, Trey would demand the ball as soon as the rebound came. But he started to trust
Mhm.
guys. He's
Yeah.
still gonna ask for the ball. It's just what he does. But he's not gonna be like like he was be legitimately upset if Jalen would like look at him
Right.
off. And I think he's learned to trust guys, and then the Hawks are reaping the rewards because it's like, why not get this demon out in transition where he's really good? Um, and then I thought he just sort of carved y'all up. And he's so powerful on the open floor. So I'm curious. Obviously, Giannis is like inarguably like one of the best transition threats of all time. Um, right now, who would you have in like your like? Do you think Jalen is in that convo as one of the best transition threats in the NBA from what you saw tonight? And if not, like who do you think is better than him at this point?
I think he has to be in that combo. Like just looking at this one right here, and just from watching Giannis for years, that I mean the he's running without the ball here. I mean that's huge for guys that can. And then he slows up to let Clint kind of clear those two out, and then trails behind Clint. I
Yep,
mean, running in transition without the ball is also a big skill too, and knowing where you're going to have space to receive the catch and then have room on the catch to finish. That's
yep.
that's a skill. You know what I mean? I've been
That's
fighting with people for years about that actually being a skill and the run and
mhm,
dunk thing, but no, like this part of the game is a skill, and especially with how the game is played now,
yep,
um, it's definitely it's huge. So no, Jalen was legit. This was my first time seeing him this year, and in this role, seems a little bit different than kind of what he was doing last year,
yep.
um, just from what I've seen today. But no, he looks really good. He's definitely one of the best I've seen so far this year. And what do they list him at height wise?
6'10".
Yeah, that's crazy. That finish that he had, um, that it looked like he knew Brook was on the left side of the rim. Giannis was kind of gave up on the play after he got spun around by the Dyson screen, and then he finished on the right with a layup. That finishing like that at 6'10", that's elite stuff.
I think what you just said about understanding the balance of the floor, like that's a great point. Because
Yeah,
if he would have, and this is a different play, just I wanted to pull it up because you mentioned it again. Understanding when to attack seams is so
yeah.
important. And like you said, also I want to point out where Brook is on this play, who was guarding Jalen. Brook, I think
Hey,
he's
man, that's tough, man. That's
yeah, he doesn't look happy with the turnover, and then he's walking, he's shaking his head, and he's a big guy, but you kind of need his presence down. Both your bigs are down the floor. And like you said, I just love that you pointed out that as Clint comes through, Jalen could continue to follow and clog that up, but he
right.
slows out enough. And like again, a great observation. And from there, it's grits. Like that's 2 points.
Yeah.
So definitely agree with that on all points. I have, sort of in like a satirical way called Giannis Run and Dunk Man. But that's like you said, like there's so much more that goes into like he's not just blindly charging people like a bull. I will say sometimes he does, but most of the times he's not.
Right.
He's scanning
Yeah, yeah.
understanding where defenders are. He's trying to figure out, okay, it's just like a running back. Like, are we gonna call Derrick
Mhm.
Henry like skilled? You know what I'm saying? Like, I
Right,
think
right,
in
yeah.
people are dismissive of physicality in basketball, but even like accepting it, seeking it out, and understanding the ways to initiate contact, absolutely a skill. So I do want to wrap up with asking you some Buck specific questions because I got a couple for you. Um, I don't think tonight was a beat down or what I'm saying, like a huge referendum on on the way you guys play. Obviously, you're coming off a
Mhm.
7-game win streak. Um, what are your biggest takeaways in terms of like matchups against teams similar to the Hawks? Do you think it's more so this is the type of team we will struggle against? Or do you think it's just like guys were making their shots, like we can compete against teams like this if we just slow it down a little bit in the half court? Or do you think they need to match and get out and transition a little bit more? I know that was like two questions, but I'm just more so curious about like, do you think their play style is exploitable by teams like the Hawks, or do you think
Mhm.
it's like more so shots weren't falling?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think the Bucks were really sloppy today, but I also think, they were sloppy because the Hawks are the team they are, and it's a bunch of younger guys with, like you said, they're opportunistic and they're looking for lazy passes and they're looking to get out and run, and they're happy with, doing that for 48 minutes, you know what I mean? So, um the Bucks do have those, times where they get really lazy and sloppy with passing, and they get stagnant on offense. And teams like this are gonna kill you when you give them the chance to. I remember the days when the Bucks were this type of Hawks team where they were trying to get out
Right.
and run on everybody. But no, those are the teams that now are probably going to kill the Bucks. I think the Knicks, they're not the same, but I mean I think defensively they're looking to shut you down. They're looking to get out. They're not the. I don't think the Knicks are good in the half court, but I think defensively they just look to do a similar thing with they're opportunistic in the passing lanes. They have long defenders that can
Mhm.
really not only shut down your primary guy, but can shut down your guys that you're looking to, like the AJ Greens, the catch and shoot guy, the Torian Prince guys.
Right.
So I think the Hawks did a really good job of kind of taking away everybody today, which is pretty crazy. I think Dame had a good game, and Giannis got to the line, but for the most part, all the role guys were kept in check tonight, and that's tough.
Yeah. 100%. Um, I'm curious too. Like, do you think there's a missing piece besides like a healthy Chris Middleton that you think could like impact this roster, like for this season in particular?
Mhm. Um, I mean, I'm gonna say Giannis and Dame have a chance, along with Chris Middleton, regardless. But I mean, it definitely wouldn't hurt to have a big that can move laterally at any capacity. Um,
Right. Right.
it would also help to have someone. I guess Chris kind of takes up that secondary ball handler role when he comes back. But yeah, I guess you know a change of pace, big. I mean, it just made it so evident last year when watching teams like the Mavs, I guess, with Lively. Lively came in and just re-energized that team with what he was able to do, being a lob threat.
Yeah.
I don't think Lively is the greatest player in the world, but I mean, just what he does for that front court and taking pressure off guys and being able to, defend a little bit further out, even if it's, obviously you don't feel comfortable with him guarding on 3-point line, but even if it's just a little bit further out and you're fine with, switching a little bit more,
Yeah.
just having that change of pace would help. And I guess, the Bucks could try to go to some Giannis at the 5 stuff, and they even tried that when Pat checked in tonight, but, I mean, it was way too late to try anything like that. And Doc really hasn't been willing to do it much, but, I
Mm.
mean, yeah, so I guess if they're not gonna do that, someone in the front court who can move would really help and at least give them another option if Brook ends up being played off the floor, which we've seen sometimes in the playoffs, depending on matchup. And it was a tough one against the Pacers last year. Miles Turner was, unfortunately feasting, pick and pop, and just being that much, just a little bit more athletic than our bigs. So something like that for sure.
And I think we talked about this too because like you were in the chat with me when we were like doing mock drafts. Like Yiz Misi was a guy that went right before your pick.
Hmm. Yeah.
With him and Deron Holmes, two guys that I think at least would have been really good fits for the non-Lopez minutes, and then I think Missy, like as a obviously like sometimes the spacing could get nasty, but I think they would have been a really imposing defensive duo. And you can't really like look back at like picks that you didn't have the opportunity to take,
Yeah.
especially like after that point. I don't really think there was a huge difference maker outside of maybe Oso, but that was a little early for him. And I
Hmm.
still, again, like I'm a big Tyler Smith guy, and I think he can be an impact player for you guys. But I do think I mean, you know better than I do, but like the assets really aren't there for an upgrade.
For sure. Yeah. They're
Mine for
not.
me, like you guys have, I think you have your first in 2031. Everything else is owned other teams.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah.
so is there maybe a salary dump, or I don't know what the package will look like because you pry Claxton away. I'm not really convinced he's in the Nets long term future. And then when the Nets do decide that they're going to stop, with the winning gimmick and actually like try and get Cooper Flag, could there
Yeah.
be an opportunity for you guys there? Because I think Claxton
Right.
could be good for you guys, but I don't really have a lot of options outside of that. And I think it would have to take a team taking on a like who wants to clear their books to do something like that. Also,
Yeah. I mean,
just
the
to
options are super limited. My fault. I didn't mean to cut you
yeah,
off, but
you
the
good, you good.
options are limited. And I mean, everyone's trying to find, a salary that matches Bobby Portis's, but I mean, Unfortunately, I don't think they're willing to move him right now and leave the Bucks with only 2 bigs and then a question mark, you know what I mean? Regardless of who you're bringing back, it's a question mark and someone you're not familiar
Mhm.
um, with only 2 months left in the regular season in February, you know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
I think we're kinda having to pivot towards, who's in that $9 million salary range, which is Pat Connaughton. You know, are you willing to give up that 31 first for whoever that could be, which probably isn't the best of options, you know, probably not. So, I mean, yeah, the options are slim and, you know, I don't know. It's gonna be tough.
And yeah, I mean, to those who aren't familiar, the second apron restrictions make it really hard for teams like Milwaukee. They can't aggregate contracts, which means they're going uh, to meet a salary, they have to be within a certain range. I believe it's like $250,000, something really restrictive.
Mhm.
Guys in that range, you're talking like Valanciunas, and even then he's at 10. Goga Patadze, like Jock Lando, Paul Reed. I do think maybe Paul Reed could be interesting. Um, I think he'd be an energy guy, but I don't think these are guys. These aren't championship moves. These aren't, you know what I mean? Like
Right.
it's
Yeah.
very margin heavy, and it's not worth giving up the capital.
Yeah.
Um,
I know. So even when we talk about the guys for Bobby, right, you're talking about like, I mean, I think Brandon Clark's in there. I don't know if the Grizzlies are willing to give him up. I mean, even
mhm.
if you throw in that first, which I doubt they do. Yeah, I don't know if they're willing to give him up. Rob Williams is a dice roll. Um, I think
Master Pro.
it's
Yeah,
yeah, it's a huge dice roll. I mean,
he's been good though.
getting no, he has. I think someone said he's got a concussion right now, but he's not playing. But I mean, getting Bob off the team is addition by subtraction. To be completely honest with you, I don't know what
Yeah,
it. I don't know what they would do with those non-Brook minutes. It would be scary, and it's for as old as Brook is, it's putting a ton on him and Giannis. And then, I mean, then you're looking at, you know, playing Giannis at the 5, which, you know, puts a toll on him. And I
yeah,
don't know if he's so yeah, it gets really tough. It gets really, really tough. But yeah, that front court is it gets messy in those minutes. I mean, the numbers are nasty.
yeah.
But yeah, if there's one area, it's that area for sure.
I mean, to back up the Giannis at the 5 claim, he's only played 4% of his minutes there, but the Bucks are plus 17 in those minutes.
Yeah.
Uh, Last year, plus 12 and 12, plus 12 at the center, only played 3% of his minutes there. Year
Hmm.
prior to that, 2022, 2023, he had his highest net rating of any position was a plus 10 as the only big on the floor. Played 16% of his minutes there. But like you said, it's a lot of strain to be the offensive, you know, creator and then also hold down the defense as the only big. And
Yeah,
so it'd be tough, but I do think it's an option, a button that they need to press a little bit more frequently this season.
for sure.
Um, I heard the Bucks broadcast say that Doc is one of the best in the league at ATOs. I was kind of like, what? Like Doc Rivers? But I did remember one particular play where he drew up something nice. I think you had a play in mind. I was just curious whether you agreed with that. I told you or before we started recording, I used to have synergy access, so I could actually check the numbers on that. I don't know where to find
Mhm.
ATO numbers anymore.
Yeah,
But
I
yeah,
know.
like,
I tried looking it up the other day when I originally found that one clip I ended up sending you, but I've been I've been a Doc Rivers believer since he got here. I've thought
really,
he's done a good job. Yeah, I mean, offensively, I can see what they're trying to do.
mm,
Even when it was ugly, I thought the process was better, and a lot of it came down to um, just the defense being nasty and guys not, you know, trying and buying in and, you know, being old and slow and all that. That's not to say the rotations weren't bad and him playing, you know, Bobby as much as he has or whatever. But offensively, I like what they try to do. The ATO stuff, it looks good to me. I mean, when you got
mm.
Dame, I'm sure that's going to help out. And you got Giannis dunking on people, I'm sure it's going to help out too. But no, I thought they do a lot offensively that I do like. So um, I've been surprised and happy with what they got going on.
Yeah. So this is the clip that you had. Um, you've noted that for the most part, you feel like they're able to create good looks out of these, especially the sideline out of bound plays, is what you highlighted. I think a lot of good pin down and screening actually, especially against the Hawks. I can't remember what part of the game it was, But like it generated a wide open lay. The ball got to Brook in the paint, and Giannis was right next to him. So it's like it was an
Yeah.
easy post there. Um, so
They
yeah,
do a
like
lot out of this too. So like they got Dame right here and
mhm,
getting screened from Andre, but sometimes they let that guy go through and it
right.
turns into a empty side DHO. Sometimes they have AJ Green in Andre's role, so it's shooter on shooter screening, which gets tough. So yeah, they get to some stuff out of this, but like I said, probably a little bit easier when you got Dame and Giannis. But Doc finds ways to scheme them open. So yeah, I've been happy with what I've seen as far as that stuff goes.
So in general, you would say like you've enjoyed the Doc experience because I think obviously like the playoff stuff, the collapses. I think for the
Yeah.
most part, a lot of it isn't actually schematics. It's just more so he's very stubborn and he doesn't always know like the right buttons to push in terms of rotations or.
Hmm.
But I think in general, like he's always been a solid guy schematically. Like I don't think his teams have performed well in the regular season. It's just and also he's had bad luck. Those Clippers teams were cursed. Like there's just really no explanation uh, for some of the stuff that happened to them. So I think he's gotten bad luck of the draw, but it's good. From what I've heard from you, it's like he's been a net positive, which I think is good to hear.
Yeah, I mean, this year he's been open to, or he has moved the rotations and lineups around a ton. I mean, if something hasn't worked, he's
Mhm.
gone to a fix, that game or whatever it's been. I mean, he's given Bobby a ton of leeway, and I guess they're really leaning on him to eat some of those big man minutes up. And I guess that would be like kind of my only thing. But he's cut Pat Connaughton out the rotation. I think he had gone a few DMPs in a row, and the Bucks were winning. And he started to play a lot of the young guys. He's played AJ Green a ton. Andre Jackson's in starting lineup. He benched Gary for a few games. Gary caught a few DMPs.
Mhm.
DeLon caught a few DMPs, and he inserted Ryan Rollins for a quick minute. So he's been willing to move around and try new things and adjust. So I've been happy with that. So yeah, I guess there's not too much. I mean, you can complain all you want. This team has like roster construction issues and has for a good minute. So I mean, you can only do so much, and then I mean, yeah, you got to hope for some injury luck to for you guys not to be injured and just hope for good luck in the playoffs, I guess, because that does play into it a ton too.
Yeah, you guys have actually kept the rotation pretty tight, at least on the graph I'm looking at. Um, like I think it's the sixth shortest rotation. So on average,
Yeah.
just a little bit above 9 players, a little bit below 9 players getting at least 10 minutes of playing time. But in terms of like different types of lineups played, I definitely agree that you guys have been pretty versatile. And I, in general, was giving him a lot of criticism at the beginning of the season. I'm like, you have to play the young guys. You have to play the young guys. Like that's what they need.
Yeah.
And to credit, he pushed those buttons. You got on that win streak. And so again, I don't think it's by any means like a doom or a gloom thing for you guys. I do still feel like, um, personally, I think Cleveland and Boston are still ahead and shoulders above everyone else, like right now.
Hmm.
But I think a healthy Chris Middleton changes a lot of the calculation in the East. He's like, I'll never forget what he did to the Hawks in Game 6, right after Brook Lopez turned him to Shaq in Game 5. I'll never forget it. Um, I will also tell you, I think it'd be kind of crazy for me to say we'd win the finals, but I do think if Trey doesn't twist his ankle, it'd be a much closer game. It's really ridiculous that both players got hurt in that series because that would have been like fully healthy. I think the series would have been like so interesting. Obviously, it was still a great series, but the fact that Giannis hyperextended his knee like that, um, and then Trey also got hurt in very
Was it
unfortunate.
was it game 6 that like Cam Reddish was going bucket for
Yes,
bucket with Chris Middleton as well?
Cam Reddish went. I was like, "Yo, this guy's Paul George." Like, oh my, we're running the East, like, and then we know what happened to him. But yeah, that was a game. Like, I was I
No,
was
yeah,
so proud of Cam that he was my profile picture. I don't even remember how long. Like, I couldn't shut up about Cam Reddish. Like, I was taking whatever I could from that series. So, like, when he went off
for
like
sure.
that,
No, he
it was.
played. That was, I mean, it felt like he wasn't missing.
Mhm.
I was at game 1. I think I was at game 1, 2, but I think game 1 it was where I think Trey had like 40. I think it was in game 1.
Yeah, yeah, he had the highest points ever in a conference finals debut.
Yeah.
Against the guys. Um, he also, I think he had I actually had to pull it up. He had 48 and 14, I'm pretty sure. Something like that.
Oh my god. Yeah,
Ridiculous.
no, I think he was unconscious, and I sat pretty
48.
close, so that was a good one.
So I was about to sneeze. But yeah, appreciate you so much for taking the time, bro. I have
Yes,
not had
sir.
a ton of time to catch Bucks games, so it's always good to catch up and get a better understanding where the team is. Um, I personally like feel a lot more informed about y'all. Definitely enjoyed talking the game with y'all for sure. Um, and yeah, I feel like anytime the Hawks and the Bucks match up, like it's pretty decent games. Like yeah, I don't really remember a blowout as of late. Um, but are you guys in the cup? You guys are, right?
Yeah, yeah, we're on the opposite side or like, the above, right? Because you guys are in it.
Hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, we might see you guys in Vegas and we'll have to do another one.
For sure. I'll definitely bring you back on. Again, I appreciate you so much. I hope everyone who watched enjoyed. And I'll see you in the next one.
For sure. Appreciate you, bro.
All right, bro.